Welcome to the Values Exchange podcast. I'm Mike Cruz, your host, private pilot, author of Saturday Every Day, and CEO of North Texas Wealth Management, a firm dedicated to values-based financial planning. This podcast uncovers the values and habits of highly successful people and dives into how it has shaped their success and what you can learn from their personal stories. Hi, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Values Exchange podcast. I am super excited about our guest today. Monessa Balzhiser is with us. First F-35 female pilot for Lockheed Martin, test pilot, F-16 from Philippines. She's here with us. And, want to tell you all about her journey and talk about the value of perseverance. So Monessa, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me, Mike. It's great to be here.
All right. So, you're setting kind of records left and right for, first female. And I know that's to be flying the F-35, but I want to understand the journey. So where'd you grow up? How'd you get into this? When did you decide to be a pilot? How did all that start?
It's actually really interesting. I was born in Mesquite, Texas.
Okay.
My parents both immigrated from the Philippines in the 1970s. So born and raised Mesquite until about 18. And pretty much in high school is when I was like, okay, I want to go be an astronaut. How do I go do this? Went to the high school counselor, asked her how to do it. She did the research and she said, you got to go to a service academy. You got to go be a fighter pilot. And then NASA will take you. It's like, okay. Easy enough.
Wow.
It's not that easy. But
I think my guidance counselor would have been like, I have no idea. You'll have somebody else. So that's great advice.
She was rock solid with trying to help me out with that and got me pointed in the right direction. So I applied for the Air Force Academy when I was about a sophomore in high school, got picked up. Luckily, it's extremely difficult to get to the Air Force Academy.
Okay.
I found that out.
Nice.
And then did that for 4 years, became an officer in the Air Force, and decided to go to pilot training since that's what the counselor told me to do. So 2 years of rigorous training for fighter to get to the fighter world. And once you get into a fighter pilot slot, then from there it was kind of joined the Air Force for 13 years and then got out and joined Lockheed.
Yeah. So when you showed up for the pilot training, what was the demographics? How many were men? How many were women?
A lot of the times I was the only female on base.
Wow.
To fly any type of aircraft. And a lot of times in a lot of my operational units I was also the only female flying.
Was there ever a time in the back of your mind you were like, maybe I don't belong? Was there any doubt, or you're like more determined?
Actually, no. I never really thought of myself as sticking out as the only female minority in a lot of the places. But that's a testament to a lot of the guys that I worked with. Okay. Fighter pilots, they want you to do one thing, complete the mission. Don't care your background, female, male, Asian, white, it doesn't matter. If you perform at a high level and you get the job done, that's what they really care about. And so for me, it's shocking always to hear being the first female, the first to do this, and I never thought about it that way. Okay. And it's a testament to what the guys, how they treated me as a fighter pilot, and nothing different than that. Yeah. Okay.
Nice. Yeah. No, that's great. And so a part of that journey, what would you say the biggest challenge has been?
I can pinpoint it to one particular spot, and it's actually the G forces of flying a fighter. Females their tendency is to be able to pull G's a lot better than males. I'm the opposite of that. So my biggest challenge was overcoming the centrifuge training that we have to go through, because I had to do that 3 times in order to pass it. And on that 3rd time, if I didn't pass, I was not going to get to fly a fighter. Mm-hmm. So to me, you would think it's trying to overcome certain aspects of being a female in the military or anything. No, it was
G-force.
purely G-forces and flying fighters and 9Gs and all that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I actually told my son that I was having the podcast today with you, and he's like, ask her how many Gs she's pulled. So that was his question.
9.5 Gs.
9.5.
Yeah,
wow.
If you think about a roller coaster, average person roller coaster about 3 Gs or so, 3 to 4 Gs is the fastest and most Gs that you can pull. But 3 times that is what we can do in the fighters.
Yeah. Wow. And so when you fail, is that because you get sick, or is that because you pass out, or how do you fail on a G test?
You pass out.
You
pass out.
Okay.
Yeah. So all the blood leaves your brain, goes to your bottom, and then you just pass out. And obviously, you can't have that happen in a fighter jet when you're the only one in it.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. So learning to, and there's a lot to that. So for people that don't know, like when you're experiencing that many G's, like what's the process? It's a certain breathing. What does that look like?
So the Air Force gives you special equipment first. Okay. So they'll give you a G suit, which think about it as pants that inflate.
Okay.
Because it pushes all the blood in your legs up, so that it keeps your blood up. And then there's a breathing technique, which I'm not going to demonstrate here. There's a breathing technique that you do to exchange air as well, because obviously you got to stay. Keep the airflow in your brain so you don't pass out either. So that, and the combination of just a lot of training and then tolerance. The more you do it, the better tolerance you have. So,
okay.
Yeah.
Well, I did this like fighter pilot for a day. There's no G suit, and we ended up pulling about 5.5 Gs, and I completely saw black.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of grit down, and you can kind of see your vision come back.
Yeah.
But the whole breathing thing, I was on camera, they had GoPros, and I was over breathing. Let's just say that. At the end of it, the video is like unwatchable because I'm just so worried about passing out.
That's the first thing that goes is your vision. And then if you really want to see how you would look when you're 80, 90 years old, look at Centrifuge video, because you're like, oh man.
Yeah, 9 times your body weight, right? Wow,
yeah.
That's awesome though. So, this transition, so I started flying F-16s first.
Yep.
And what was that like? I mean, going faster than the speed of sound.
The first time you fly a fighter, you're so focused. Training kicks in and you're just like, okay, I got a mission to do. You never really get to sit around and look outside, enjoy, cloud chase, all that.
Okay.
So pulling 9 Gs, going faster than the speed of sound, and then actually doing the mission that you're trained to do, especially in combat deployments, you don't get to think about it until you sit down, relax, and you're like, oh, what did I just do? So from that aspect, it was, I appreciate I appreciate and respect the power of the machines that we fly. But for me, both the F-16 and the F-35, it's amazing what those jets can do, and how our U.S. military are using them right now.
Yeah,
it's
pretty amazing. So going from the F-16 to the F-35, what are some of the differences? Did you have new challenges? How was that transition?
From a flying perspective, it was actually pretty simple, because the stick and the throttle were in the same position.
Okay.
So getting in the cockpit was somewhat familiar from stepping into the F-16 into the F-35. Where the F-35, that transition, pilots really have to focus on the data and the amount of technology and information that's being shown to the pilot, because the capabilities that are in there, obviously it's a war fighting machine, so it's made to go against enemy threats. And so for fighter pilots, when they're flying it, you're seeing so many different things being brought to you from on a huge display. So flying is almost second nature to fighter pilots. You got to be able to sit there and just fly and not even think about it, because you're looking at the battle space. You're thinking and reacting in very dynamic, high threat situations, to where you have to make a decision quickly based off what you've seen. So that is a huge transition, and it just keeps getting better. So F-16, it was very different. You got separate formats. Pilot has to look at one format, understand the data, second format, understand the data, and then come together with a solution, whereas the F-35 does that.
Okay.
So that's like the huge transition I had to adjust to when I went to 2 different planes.
Yeah, you're just getting more data faster, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah,
it's crazy what you see.
So when you transitioned, F-35 single pilot, so when your first time in there, was that alone?
Yeah, you're solo.
Okay.
Solo. So you do 12 simulators prior to that.
Uh-huh.
And then the government pretty much hands you an $80 million plane and say, don't mess this up.
Right.
So
There's a very expensive helmet to go with it, right?
Yes, it's a really cool helmet.
Okay.
I should have bought it.
Oh, that's great. Can you talk about some of the capabilities of that F-35? Just like I know that, and kind of what you're doing now for Lockheed.
Yeah, sure. So as a production and training pilot, my day-to-day kind of workday looks pretty much of get up, brief up, and then what we do as Lockheed Martin pilots is we are the very, very first ones to fly the aircraft out of the factory. So imagine you get a new car and they're like, here's a car, here's a really fast car. Go test every single limit you can on this, from how fast it goes to how fast it brakes to can you turn it. Same thing in the jet is what we do as test pilots. So I'll take it up and I'll check the normal things for the aircraft, such as the engine's working well, flight controls are working, landing gear, anything that is required for airworthiness.
Mm-hmm.
And then on the second mission, we go out and test all the avionics. So pressing all the pilots, we really like to press buttons.
Yeah.
So we're just pressing everything in the jet, make sure it's all working. And it's really to make sure that we're providing quality aircraft to all the different customers that we service.
Nice. Oh, that's really fun. So thinking about kind of who's helped you along the way, I would say, somebody helped you. Who would you say is your biggest, mentor in helping you kind of accomplish what you've accomplished?
I have plenty. And it's in different stages of life too. Obviously my parents laid the foundation of hard work. I can't even imagine coming to a new country, not knowing very many people, barely knowing the language, coming in and establishing yourself with a job and then with family. So they really were the first foundation of setting up hard work for me. And then I have an older sister, and you want to drive competition out of me, just tell me go beat your older sister.
Okay.
Easy. I'll go do that any day. So growing up, and she was really good at everything she did. So that kind of sparked that competition in me to do better than her.
Nice.
I know it's kind of weird to say, but
it
literally is why I get my competitiveness and my wanting to be better is seeing what she did and just trying to emulate and do better than that. And then once I got into the military, I had a huge support structure from the female fighter pilots. It's a very close-knit group because there's not many of us that were there. And I particularly remember one of them pulling me aside and saying, do this, don't do this, do this, don't do this. You're a female, so this might be a little bit different, but don't let that bother you. Just perform.
Nice.
Many of those ladies that kind of broke down the barriers for me to do what I wanted to do really set me on a path of how I should conduct myself in a fighter squadron as a female, and then really set the tone for understanding how to work the ins and outs of the fighter community. Yep.
Yeah.
So
nice.
Lots of mentors.
Oh, that's great. What do you kind of see as the barriers today and kind of the aviation industry for women? And like, what do you see your role as like breaking down those barriers?
So like I mentioned, it's weird for me to say that I'm breaking down a barrier because I'm just doing a job that I love to do. I think based off what I know is a lot of the times when I get to talk with folks, it's holy cow, I didn't even know that was allowed. I even possible for me to do. And the first step is really just seeing somebody like you doing it. I think that just brings about a natural desire to say, oh my gosh, if she can do it, I can do it. At least that's what it would do with me.
So you're setting the example.
So just being able to see somebody doing what you dream about doing, I think is huge. I know the U.S. Air Force has done an incredible job of helping females become or stay in as fighter pilots. Back in the day, it was a little different. But now they're making a lot of changes to help when a female becomes pregnant or has family duties, and vice versa for the males as well too. But those barriers are in aviation. I'm starting to see is slowly being broken down based off examples and then some changes that they're making.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's good. So, husband's a fighter pilot.
Yes.
Do you hope your daughter's going to be a fighter pilot?
I think she's going to be the complete opposite of it.
That's usually how that works. Right.
She definitely has the drive and tenacity to do it if she really wanted to. We've already seen her just, put her mind to something and say, okay, I'm going to go do it. So hopefully that's steered towards, I don't know, when I think about our 6-year-old daughter doing what I do, it's part of me is like a little scared, but I know she could easily do it if she wanted to, but I don't think she will. Yeah. I hope so, but
that's good. Well, I have 2 daughters, and I hope they both watch and are inspired by you. Like, go do it. That's great. No, that's good. So yeah, definitely a trailblazer in your field. Looking back, I mean, you've done so much. So help me out here. So you've set some marks. So first F-35 pilot, female for Lockheed Martin as a test pilot. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. And then also in the Air Force, flying the F-16, first female from the Philippines? Correct. That's amazing. Yeah. Correct. I mean, so you made it in Wikipedia. I don't show it there. That's pretty cool.
Just don't Google my name, please.
Right. So looking back, if you said, so far, I mean, you're not done, but what's been the greatest accomplishment? What are you most proud of so far?
Obviously from a personal standpoint, my daughter, and having her grow up in getting to see the military side. She was born in Italy when we were stationed there, so her first word was ciao. Nice. But giving her a life that's where she understands she can choose whatever she wants to do, as you mentioned, and then also an appreciation for our military. It wasn't until I left the military in 2016, but my husband was still in it until 2018, where I went from being that fighter pilot to now being the support role, the mom, raising a little kid, watching my husband go deployed, that I really, really appreciated what our military families go through. Being on the other side of it, it's like, man, I'm leaving you, the military person is leaving him here to raise this kid for 6-7 months at a time. So having my daughter grow up in that environment, understanding that, even at a young age, I think she's starting to get it, like the importance of service and of what other people do to sacrifice for what we have. So that's the proudest moment there. And then from a professional side, I'd say one of the proudest things I've got, just a mission that just brings me joy, is saving lives on the ground in combat, because that's what every fighter pilot is trained to do. And we don't want to screw it up, because we, obviously lives on the ground, they're relying on us to do the right thing so that they survive and can escape or fight back, whatever. So there's, particular missions that come to mind now that when I sit back and look at it, I'm really proud that I got to even be a part of that, to shake the hand of the guy that I saved. Nice. A few days afterwards when he comes to the base and talks about it. So that, from a professional standpoint, I love what I do with Lockheed Martin, but there's nothing that can beat service to helping somebody and saving their life.
Yeah, that's hard to top. That's amazing. Well, thank you for your service. That's awesome.
Well, my husband's done it more than I have, so.
So, most important question today, in a dogfight, you and your husband, the F-16, this is your opportunity, right? Yeah. That's great. So kind of the biggest lesson, has there been a surprise along the way as you're on this journey? I mean, you set out to be an astronaut, went through all this. Was it what you expected, or was there a surprise?
No, yeah, it was definitely a surprise. I took a turn, obviously. SpaceX is still available, but at the time, whenever I had to make that decision in my career of continuing on as a fighter pilot or trying to go the astronaut route, unfortunately, NASA, the timing didn't work out with money cuts and all that. So I don't want to say that I settled to be a fighter pilot. That's obviously, I was happy to continue that path. And that's that a big lesson learned is, I set 10 years of my life focused on going to be an astronaut. And then all of a sudden I just made a turn. And I was completely okay with that. I met a guy I liked, worked out well. And then continuing on as a fighter pilot career, that was so enjoyable for me to continue to do and meant a lot. So even though timing doesn't work out for one thing, turning around and doing something else it was the best decision I made.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because, my son's trying to figure out, go off to college and where are you headed, talk to my kids about this. And, I kind of tell them that, it's hard to put the pieces together when you're looking forward. Oh, yeah. But later in life, you look backwards and you're like, all these little decisions and, it makes sense, right?
Yes. Yeah,
you're like,
exactly.
I ended up going this route and it worked out.
Exactly.
But it's hard to see that vision, in the other direction. So
especially as a teenager, just wants to go to college.
Right. And, connect the dots. But it definitely takes, perseverance to just kind of stay the course. And so when you think of like the value of perseverance, where do you think that's helped you the most?
I think fighter pilots by nature are used to having or persevering because of what we do. You have a mission, you have a goal, and you're always going to meet challenges, but you go towards that goal and you have to succeed. And that's why I think it's just by nature in my mindset and attitude for perseverance, because, there's so many things that you reach for a goal, you're going to meet challenges. How do you overcome those challenges? How do you persevere? I think it's a mindset, and then not also being afraid of failing as well, because you're going to hit challenges everywhere in life, whether it's your job, personal, but it's really how you come out of that. And if you go into it like afraid of failing, then you're not going to learn very much, I think. So that's the biggest trait for me, and how you persevere in certain aspects.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's kind of overcoming that self-talk of, like, oh, I should just quit. I do something else, or, not going there. And just kind of that grit to stay, just no matter what, I'm just going to keep working at it.
Yeah. And definitely don't take the easy way out either. Yeah. Like, you're not going to learn from it as much as you would if you really challenge yourself. And that's what I constantly felt throughout not only career, but life is, if I was afraid to do it, I definitely wouldn't be where I am right now. So, yeah.
And sometimes it's being afraid to do it, but then like pushing yourself to do it anyway, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's like Seabiscuit. You see that like horse in front of you, and you're like, I'm going to go beat that person, or something, or I'm going to go do that. That's kind of what's got me along.
Okay. Just go.
Just go. I see somebody, I'm just going to go.
That's awesome. So, Lockheed Martin is so innovative, and it's great you get to work there. What's the most enjoyable part of working for Lockheed Martin?
Oh, so many enjoyable parts for working for Lockheed Martin. Representing the company in a flight suit, and giving everybody that pilot's perspective. So the company does a great job with letting us travel internationally to all the different customers, potential customers that are looking at our products, and giving them that pilot's perspective, such as, here's what this jet can do to make your military better. And then also getting to engage. I do a lot of trade shows, a lot of air shows, and customer engagement. So I get to talk with the people who just love aviation.
Okay.
And when you're surrounded by people who just love aviation and you get to do what I do, it makes for some great conversations, both inside Lockheed Martin and and other engagements that we do. It's a fun job. Yeah. There's only 12 of us in the world that do it.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. I think, I went to Oshkosh, the largest air show, and, we went, and it was one of those things. It's like, oh, this is a once in a lifetime. We went, and it was like, no, this is an annual event. Like, we won't miss it because it's just so amazing. But I think aviation is one of those things that either kind of gets in your blood or it doesn't. If it does, it's like, can't explain it. I just love it.
You end up talking with your hands and just, it's a lot.
Make noises.
Make noises. Pew, pew. Yeah, it's fun being around people who just love what you do.
Yeah, no, that's great. And of course, the fighters are always the highlight of those air shows. Just wait for that moment.
Sorry, it's loud.
It's like everybody else as a pilot is kind of like throwing the opening pitch, but then you actually have like the major league player that comes out. That's you guys with the fighter pilots. It's like, man, this is awesome.
Like sunglasses and dog tags. And no, Tom Cruise makes it look really like cool and pretty.
That's awesome. But so, getting to go on trips and travel and lots of fun. So air shows, it's amazing. So for those that are inspired by you, and I'm sure there's plenty, what are those recommendations you'd say that somebody says, man, that's amazing, I want to be a fighter pilot one day? What would you tell them?
So being a fighter pilot, like I said, it's an attitude and it's a mindset. I'm going to take the initiative to follow a journey, follow a specific goal, and I'm going to go reach it. So for when people ask me, how do I get to do what you do? It's simple, honestly. It's perform at a high level. And if you do that, it's really hard to for people who counter what you want to go do or say, you can't go do that. If you perform at a high level, and I've noticed that professionally, personally, but definitely as a fighter pilot, is you try your best, you take the initiative to improve, and you make everyone else around you better as well. I think those are the things that you really have to take into account when you want to go try and be a fighter pilot, whether it's military or Lockheed Martin.
Mm-hmm. So when you're striving, it's almost like you're striving for perfection, right?
Yes.
There's a balance there, right? Because sometimes that can be motivating.
Yes.
And then at some curve, it's like, oh,
I'm never going to reach
I don't know if I'm ever going to be, as perfect as I want to be. How do you balance that? How do you stay kind of like the grind, the perseverance component of that?
Absolutely. Well, first, I think, obviously you have a big goal at the end, but I think taking small wins and small achievements and understanding that really helps build you to get to that end point, right? Because if you're constantly failing, I'm not saying that you shouldn't do it, but it can beat down on a person. I mean, I've definitely experienced where I'm like, oh, another one. I can never do this right on an upgrade, but I can never do this right, but I'm going to try and make it better, make myself better, make the people who are flying with me, your wingmen, your team better. It's just the idea of, okay, take the initiative and go do it. And understanding there is failure, but I'm going to try and be perfect because someone's relying on the ground for me to do that. I want to be perfect, knowing that perfect is hard to achieve. But I'm going to try to go do it as best as I can.
Yep. And so that perseverance piece of that, kind of shaping your success, just breaking it down into steps and just continuing just try to be better.
Yeah. Small wins. I mean, no joke. They do help. They help the confidence, and it helps you to keep going, I think.
Mm-hmm. And so fighter pilot of the Air Force, made this transition to Lockheed, huge success there. What was the driving factor of why did you decide to make the change?
So I had been in the military for about 13 years. And we just had a baby girl. And I felt like it was really the time to take care of our little girl, let my husband finish out his military commitment and duty, and then, make an impact in a different job. I actually joined Lockheed as a engineer.
Okay.
And they found out I was previously a fighter pilot. And they're like, hey, do you want to fly for Lockheed Martin? You want to be a test pilot for Lockheed Martin? Who would say no to that, honestly?
Right.
So it was the timing of it. Female fighter pilots, once you find out you're pregnant, you can't fly in a fighter. That's not to say you can't go back to flying. The Air Force would do a good job getting you to that point if that's what you desired. But personally, it was a work-life balance discussion I had with my husband, and just made the decision that it was time to hang at what I thought was stop flying fighters. Yeah.
So now you're back in. It sounds like this is a dream job.
Yes, it's hard to beat. It's really, flying fighters as a civilian and no longer in the military. But yeah.
So do you have something that's next, or do you feel like you've arrived?
Well, I feel like there's always something next. And, whatever Lockheed Martin is able to, the next steps forward, obviously there's always another way or another thing to do. I don't know, because I'm having so much fun doing what I'm doing right now.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the Values Exchange. Really enjoyed it. And, it was kind of really cool this morning. So I got to pick you up.
Yes.
In, a small plane going about 1,000 miles per hour slower and no pressure, it's flying in here for the podcast. So
you did great.
But no, it was a lot of fun. So thanks so much for being here, Monessa.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a ton of fun to do.
Yeah. So we threw in some GoPros. Might have a little bit of footage from that flight just for fun at the end of this here. But thanks for tuning in to another episode of Value Exchange Podcast. Look forward to our next episode. Thanks again.
Yeah, Meacham Tower 990, Mike Charlie, ready to go 16.
Cirrus 990, Mike Charlie, Meacham Tower, good morning. Left turn is approved. Wind 16011, runway 16, cleared for takeoff.
Transport 6727 heavy departure, ready to contact, common maintain 6,000 CL.
But it gives me the weather right here, 16010 gusting 16.
That's awesome.
So 2990.
16, go ahead.
Yeah, digital.
So, sometimes I get the weather right here long before I can pick it up on the second frequency, right?
TBM 0Q, Juliet, Squawk 4673, advise me of information, whiskey.
And we'll just trim that back to 30.5 on manifold pressure.
Okay.
And then this is the lean. It's real easy because it pulls up this blue magenta. I mean, it's just cheating. And so you can just pull it back to basically the bottom, about 17. And now you're all trimmed out for cruise.
Wow.
I mean, it's cheating, right?
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so the interesting part...
Charlie, turn 10 degrees left.
10 left, 0 Mike Charlie. So the interesting part is that it's a constant speed prop.
Yeah.
But this is mechanically linked, so it's adjusting the prop.
Navy
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Have you noticed on takeoff?